Hello, everyone. Just making sure before we proceed that you can, in fact, hear me now at this point. Just doing a quick audio check, making sure that we've got good communications here. It looks like we're in business now. Got a 5x5 by species and other folks confirming the audio is going through. So, going to re-rack start over. Welcome, everyone, to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. Good to be with you here on this Monday evening. We're broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Just about 25 minutes on the clock remaining before the planned launch of SpaceX's next Falcon 9 rocket, set to deliver a batch of 27 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites to low Earth orbit. This is the second of 3 Falcon 9 flights that SpaceX has on the calendar to kick off the month of December. Of course, we had a good launch from here in Florida this morning from Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. And following this launch, if all goes well, from Vandenberg, looking to tomorrow for launch number 3 in the afternoon hours over at SpaceX's workhorse pad, Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Given we've kind of lost a few minutes here on the front end with those technical issues with the audio, we'll speed run some of our usual preamble. Thank our moderators quickly. You, Jeff, Rick, and Joe. Appreciate you all being here to help hold things down in the chat. For our regulars, you know the rules of the chat. You're not strangers here. If you have any questions about what is or is not allowed, let's go ahead and pop that into the chat, and the mods can tell you what's what. Also want to thank one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for helping to answer folks' questions in our live chat. And a big thank you to our wonderful channel member community here on YouTube who make this and every other live launch opportunity possible. 23 minutes, 19 seconds remaining in the count. SpaceX is in the process of fueling its Falcon 9 rocket there at the pad. So locking in the current T0 of 9:28 p.m. Pacific, 12:28 a.m. Eastern, 05:28 UT for our friends joining around the world. Coming up in the next few minutes will be the start of the thermal conditioning of the feed lines there at the pad as SpaceX prepares to load liquid oxygen on board the Falcon 9 rocket's second stage. Bringing you up to speed with where we are in the countdown timeline. As mentioned, fueling is already underway with RP-1, the rocket-grade kerosene flowing on board the rocket's booster and upper stage. First stage helium load began about 30 minutes prior to the planned liftoff time. Second stage helium load also underway. Helium is used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Second stage RP-1 loading wrapped up just about a minute ago now. Coming up next is that strong back chill down process I was just referencing. How do we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point of the count? We would be seeing the so-called big vent. Lasts about 4 minutes in duration and sets up second stage LOX load to proceed at about T-minus 16 minutes before liftoff. T-minus 7 minutes is the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 rocket. SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank is full. And at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strongback, also referred to as the transporter erector. The clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then that large truss structure will recline here at Vandenberg, about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it will stay in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before takeoff, is when the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Same will be true on the second stage about a minute afterwards. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is entered into its automated startup sequence, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks will be brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director, if all goes well, will give their confirmation that they are in fact go for launch, T-minus 45 seconds. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds. And if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 departure. Once again at 9:28 p.m. Pacific, 12:28 a.m. Eastern, 05:28 UTC, or just shy of 20 minutes from now. So far, been a good orbital launch day across the board. Of course, we had a good successful launch of the Starlink 6-86 mission from here in Florida. That was followed up by a good flight from Arianespace with their Vega C rocket, sixth launch of that vehicle to date, setting up an Earth observation satellite from South Korea. If you'd like to read more about that, we've got an article up now on our website, spaceflightnow.com, which you can peruse on your own timeline. While you're there, you can also pop over and check out the launch schedule tab so that you're alert and aware of future launches, orbital launches, that is, that are coming down the pike. One slight adjustment to the schedule, which will be forthcoming here in a little bit. The Rocket Lab launch of the Raise and Shine mission for JAXA is hit a snag with some unfortunate weather down in New Zealand. So they're pushing to now launching no earlier than Sunday, December 7th, local time. That's a departure in New Zealand at 4 p.m. They're locally 0300 UTC on December 7th. (10 p.m. Eastern on December 6th. This evening's launch of Starlink 15-10 will see SpaceX call upon one of their more often used boosters, but still not quite often used enough to make the cut for the Falcon 9 frequent flyers. Here's what the list looks like at the moment. We'll not see the booster that's flying here today on this list. That's the 1081, which will be flying for its 20th time. But we will see an adjustment to this list after tomorrow afternoon's launch from here in Florida. That'll be the flight of B-1077 launching for its 25th time. Just about 16 minutes remaining in the count. At this point, the big vent has wrapped up, and second stage liquid oxygen load is about to begin in now less than 10 seconds. As far as the weather is concerned for today's launch from Vandenberg, take a look at the latest weather loop from NOAA's Goes West satellite. You can see conditions pretty darn clear over Vandenberg Space Force Base, which is good news, and decently clear skies in the neighboring states to California. So hopefully, folks out in as far as Arizona can have some good views of this Falcon 9 rocket as it takes flight. The trajectory for today's mission will see the vehicle hug the coastline pretty nicely. So let's talk a little trajectory here. An overview of what that will look like. Falcon 9 rocket will cruise along the coastline of California and Mexico with the first stage booster, the 1081, targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. That'll happen about 8.5 minutes post liftoff. If all goes well, that will be the 166th good landing on that particular drone ship, marking as well SpaceX's 542nd booster landing to date. SpaceX is also concerned with recovering its fairing halves in addition to the boosters, wanting to also certify them for up to 40 flights each. Once down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, they'll splash down a little bit further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. These fairing halves will be brought aboard one of SpaceX's recovery vessels and then sailed on through the port of Long Beach. Then they'll be off to SpaceX facilities at Vandenberg, where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. Taking a peek back at the live chat, we'll hop over to new members and super chats here in a second. But I see we are also joined this evening by one of our moderators, Callistia Lee. Good to see you this evening. In other happenings in the chat, want to welcome in new channel members, BS Wisher 4554 and Mighty Wind X joining at the pad leader level. Also a new member whose name appears to be written in Russian, and I apologize for not knowing enough Russian to be able to read that, but we certainly appreciate you joining as a channel member as well. We're very glad to have you with us. I also want to thank channel member Rick Donner for gifting 5 Spacefly Now memberships. So to our 5 newest gifted members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Rick in the live chat, and we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Speaking of sticking around, Astro Joe, one of our moderators, marking 41 months with us as a member at the pad leader level. His membership is worth every penny. Certainly appreciate the kind words, Joe. And thanks for what you do as one of our moderators. Jeff Hansen with a $5 super chat, welcoming Callistia Lee back to the fold. Rodent, no last name. Still makes me laugh. Been a member with us now for 8 months, who says, clear skies from the Mojave Desert. Certainly good news there. Michael McGrory with a $5 super chat says USA launched a record number from Florida, right? Did we launch a record from Vandenberg? The fair question. Just double checking our stats before we further commented on that. Yes, the total number of orbital launches from Vandenberg last year was less than 50, so Vandenberg has been in record territory for a little while now. Tonight's launch will be number 61 by our count. 60 of those will have been from SpaceX alone. The other was from Firefly with their Alpha rocket. Turning back to the mission at hand with about 9.5 minutes remaining on the clock. Taking a look at the payload on board, we've got a batch of 27 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites. Taking a look at some of the behind the scenes production that goes on in Redmond, Washington, courtesy of SpaceX. Tonight's mission is the 112th flight, featuring Starlink satellites as the primary payload. These Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites are considerably lighter than their predecessor V2 Minis. With their solar panels unfurled, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters tip to tip. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. As you can see with this B-roll to the left of the text, these satellites were built up in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. These will be deployed at about 168 miles or 270 kilometers in altitude at a roughly 70-degree inclination. Just under 8 minutes to go now before the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket with those 27 Starlink satellites on board. In less than a minute, SpaceX will begin the engine chill sequence. Turning back to the live chat here. First off, want to thank the more than 5,300 of you, now 5,400 of you who are watching along with us live. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream to allow some more folks to find their way into this coverage. Also, thanks to Glenn Ashworth, 9550, one of our channel members, for gifting a $2 and then a $5 super chat. Glenna. Also, thanks to Steve Jennings, 2266, for the $5 super chat as well. Thank you, Steve, for your support tonight. Thanks as well to Gilbert Goobies Castro for the $2 super chat. A fun handle to say. Big thanks to Michael McCrory for a very generous $100 super chat. Thank you so much, Michael, for supporting us at that level. Michael says, thank you all so much for your continuing live launches. Spaceflight Now crew really could have used this during the 70s, 80s, 90s. Glad we live in interesting times. Thanks, Will, Stephen, moderators, and all your great photographers and all Spaceflight Now supporters. Well, thank you so much for the kind words and for that very lovely vote of confidence. Certainly love being a part of the work we do here at Spaceflight Now, while also recognizing the shoulders upon which we stand as far as space coverage and the journalists who've been covering the beat in those eras you mentioned. So Proud to continue blazing this trail and be a small part of the tapestry of space reporters, both here in the United States as well as around the world, that are dedicated to covering this industry, both on the government and commercial side. It's fun, tiring, and always interesting. Speaking of timing, we're just about 5 minutes away from the planned launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. Should be getting views from SpaceX here momentarily.
Tanks are pressing for strongback retract.
And as you heard and can now see, we've got good views of the Falcon 9 rocket. No Vandenberg fog to speak of, which is always a welcome sight. Nice backlighting illuminating the vapor trailing off from the rocket as well.
Strongback retract has started.
In just a moment here, we'll see the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings open up, and then that large truss structure, the strongback, will recline roughly 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. Here at Vandenberg, it stays in that position up to and through liftoff. There go the clamp arms. And the strongback is in motion. Just under 4 minutes remaining. Coming up in less than a minute now, we should hear a call out from SpaceX noting that the first stage liquid oxygen tank has reached flight levels.
Stage 1, LOX load is complete.
Good call out there. We should hear a similar call again in less than a minute regarding the upper stage LOX tank. Two minutes and counting.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
With that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Momentarily, we'll see some additional venting from the strongback.
Ground gas closeouts.
Good call there for the release of the remaining liquid oxygen in the feed lines. You can tell it's a bit breezy out there at Vandenberg, at Space Launch Complex 4 East. Very defined direction of the vapor there trailing off the rocket.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
With that call, we're just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are, in fact, go for launch. Call should be coming here in the next few seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that confirmation, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, listen along with you for the final 30 seconds, and join you back again on the other side of liftoff.
T minus 30 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal. Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Now a little more than 1 minute into flight. As you just heard, the Falcon 9 now traveling faster than the speed of sound, approaching max Q,
Max Q.
point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Merlin engines will be throttling back now up at this point, preparing for the start of MVAC chill, the thermal conditioning of the Merlin vacuum engine on the rocket's upper stage.
Engine chill.
Good call there, and a nice tracking view from SpaceX. Teams are coming up to a few events in fairly rapid succession here momentarily. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds into this flight. That'll be followed by stage separation and then the ignition of the aforementioned Merlin vacuum engine. The payload fairings will jettison right about the 3-minute mark. About 10 seconds to MECO.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Good calls, good visuals. You can see the hypersonic grid fins deploying on the booster there on the left-hand side of your screen. Fairing jettison is next.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And a good view of those 27 Starlink satellites. SpaceX will recover those fairing halves once they splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, a little bit further downrange from where the booster's set to touch down on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. Speaking of that booster, now crossing 100 kilometers in altitude and climbing. A little more than 3.5 minutes into the mission so far. All appears to be going nominally. The next major milestone will be the 3-engine entry burn for the booster, where it will start to hit the brakes, slow the vehicle down. You can see the track of both the first and second stages there on the left-hand side of the screen. now just about 1 minute away from the start of the entry burn. Just about 10 seconds to entry burn.
Stage 1 FTS has saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
This burn will last less than 30 seconds in duration.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And with the conclusion of that entry burn, the next major milestone is the start of the single engine landing burn, set to begin just a hair past the 8-minute mark in this flight, so roughly a minute away from now. The call that you heard prior to the start of the entry burn concerning the FTS, that was the flight termination system, no longer needed at this stage in flight. You'll hear a similar call regarding the second stage coming up here in just a little bit as the booster is cruising in towards a landing on the drone ship.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
Good calls there. Right around the time of booster landing, we may also hear the call out that the second stage is entering into terminal guidance. That just means that it's nearing the end of the current burn that it's in.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn. Landing lead deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
MVAC shutdown.
Appears to have been a good landing for B-1081 and a confirmation of shutdown for the Merlin vacuum
Nominal
engine.
orbit insertion.
And a good orbit insertion. All calls that we like to hear. At this point, the upper stage will continue on in this coast phase until T plus 53 minutes. There will be a roughly 2-second burn of that upper stage engine, setting things up for the Starlink satellites to be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 1 minute, and 52 seconds post liftoff. However, SpaceX no longer shows deployment live, so we'll have to wait for confirmation from the company to confirm that they actually had a good separation of those Starlink satellites. With a good liftoff and landing, though, we're turning now to our mission stats as they currently stand here in just a moment. But first, I want to thank a couple folks in the chat for your support tonight. Our thanks to, let's see, we've got Rick Donner and David Humphreys, each gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that from the both of you. To our 10 newest gifted members, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Let's see, I also want to thank Jeff Gotland and Into Sky for each gifting $2 super chats here, and Artie Jones 00821 for a $5 super chat as well. Thank you so much. And a big thanks to Greg Matthews for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Greg, for supporting us at that level. Who says, thanks for the great coverage, watching in Riverside, California. Hope you had a good view there in Riverside, Greg. With this mission, that was the 20th flight of the Falcon 9 booster, tail number 1081. This was SpaceX's 571st Falcon 9 launch to date, the 154th Falcon 9 flight of the year so far. This is SpaceX's 167th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 165th orbital launch for the company from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 234th overall orbital flight from this pad as well. Here's a look at the Falcon family of rocket launches year over year. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 166th good landing on the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. It marked SpaceX's 444th drone ship landing, the 542nd Falcon booster landing, and the 543rd overall booster landing, including Blue Origin's New Glenn booster. Never telling the odds. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 61st orbital launch from California this year, the 163rd orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 178th orbital flight from a U.S. rocket company, and the 282nd orbital launch around the world. There have been 6 orbital mishaps so far this year. Here's where the pie chart now currently stands. And as one final reminder, tomorrow we hope you're able to join us once again as we have live coverage planned for the Starlink 6-95 mission with a departure time currently looking at 3:16 p.m. Eastern, 2016 UTC for our friends around the globe. Speaking of some of those friends, want to thank our friends and moderators, Jeff Hansen, Rick Donner, Astro Joe, and Callisti Elite, for all being here with us to help hold it down in the live chat. Also, thanks to one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for helping to answer folks' questions in the chat as well. Thanks to our Spacefly Now editor, Stephen Young, who's been running the technical operations of tonight's broadcast. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention and hope all have a restful evening, and we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow afternoon, local time. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.